60-minute practice session here in MotoGP. Of course, on a weekend where we could find out whether Marc Marquez will indeed complete the greatest comeback of all time. He's on the brink of capturing his first MotoGP crown in 6 long years. He has done it, of course, here in Motegi on 3 previous occasions, back in 2014, 2016 and 2018. Third fastest the factory Ducati star was at the end of play this morning. It was his teammate Pecco Bagnaia. Is the Italian coming back to his best form? I guess the jury's still out on that one, but Bagnaia made a lightning start to this Grand Prix of Japan, the first Friday morning that Bagnaia has topped all season so far this year. He was tailed by current MotoGP World Champion Jorge Martin. Was one of a handful of riders in the top 10 that did go onto fresh rubber. Mark was third, headed to Gian Antonio Marini, shining once again for the factory on the team in fifth. Morbidelli, Acosta, Miller, Chantra, who went out on soft tyres at the end of the session, 9th fastest, and Miguel Oliveira were completing your top 10. There was drama further down the order for the likes of Marco Bezzecchi in particular. A very eventful start for Bez here in Japan, after he tipped off initially at turn 11 on the RSGP machine when he was looking really strong straight out of the gate, went straight back out on the spare bike and then done that at turn 5. Bezzecchi then, 5 turns in the last 7 Grand Prix, only completed 7 full laps in this morning's session. There were crashes as well in FP1 for Raul Fernandez on the track out of Aprilia. He was relatively unscathed and picked himself up to finish 14th fastest. Crashes in the same corner, just about a second apart for both Jack Miller and Frankie Morbidelli. Both of those two were A-OK. And more worries and more troubles for Enea Bastianini, of course, who crashed out of contention last time out in front of his home crowd in Misano. And well, the Beast was on the floor as well at turn 10 this morning. Speaking of 10, well, it's the 10 fastest riders at the end of this session will book their places directly into tomorrow morning's Q2, which can be so decisive as Marc Marquez looks to convert that first match point. Matt Burton, Lewis Silverby talking you through all of this afternoon's action as we do vie for those places in Q2. Jack Appleyard down in what is a very toasty pit lane here in Japan this afternoon. Well, the magic number 3 is the magic number as far as Mark is concerned. If he is to complete the comeback right here in Motegi, well, he needs to score 3 points more than brother Alex over the course of tomorrow's 12-lap sprint and the full race distance over 24 laps here on Sunday. Third quickest this morning, Lewis, with a 144.959. One of 3 riders with Bagnaia and Martin to find a 144, but you have to say it looked like Mark had to work pretty hard for it.
He did, and we saw a number of shots from the factory Ducati box of Marc Marquez in deep discussions with his crew chief Marco Rigamonti, and they didn't appear to be saying too many positive things about how the bike was handling. There's a couple of Marc Marquez's fans, of which he has millions across the world, as far as Peru. They've travelled 15,000 kilometres, no less, to be here on what could be a momentous weekend for Marc Marquez. They love him in Japan, not least because, of course, he spent so many years on board a Honda. But as you mentioned this morning, puts in the shade for what has to be said, not one of the many times this season by his teammate Pecco Bagnaia.
Pretty obvious where Mark's issues were in that FP1 session. He was really struggling in the second sector. Fastest he was in splits 1 and 4. 22nd fastest in the second sector. So that's where Mark's going to clearly find some pace. It was pretty tough going this morning for brother Alex. A big pre-Japanese Grand Prix boost for the Spanish rider. Confirmation from Ducati that he'll be getting a big machinery upgrade in 2026. He'll be on the GP26, identical in spec to brother Marc Bagnaia and the Gian Antonio. Wouldn't exactly call it a lightning start out of the track this morning as far as Alex is concerned. 15th on the timesheets, nearly 6.5 tenths behind Pecco Bagnaia. Now then, Lewis, Davide Tardozzi, factory Ducati boss this morning, told Jack Pecco is back. Is he?
To be confirmed, if you're asking me at this stage. There have been a few false dawns for Pecco Bagnaia already this season. Remember the famed brake disc change on the Sunday of Aragon. It is Davide Tardozzi speaking to Jack earlier on today. Sure, Pecco's back. Well, let's find out how he goes. Pecco's now reading that on the screen, I think, as well. He's hoping that Davide's right. But Pecco Bagnaia also said following Hungary, he said on the Sunday after Hungary, didn't he? He said, I feel like we found a good step forward. Hopefully that will translate to Barcelona. It spectacularly did not. So let's see where he ends up at the end of this afternoon. And even then, I'll still wait for the sprint to be convinced that Pecco Bagnaia has truly figured it out.
Yes, given the false dawns, I think it's fair to say that the jury is still out as far as Bagnaia is concerned, to whether he has really turned the corner in finding some front-end confidence with that factory Ducati. He's looking at the screens there with a wry smile thinking, yeah, thanks very much, Davide. But yeah, it's actually no pressure at all. Second fastest, his best start to a weekend on the factory Aprilia for Jorge Martin. Martin was one of the handful of riders I've mentioned that found themselves in the top 10 at the end of FP1 this morning, with Digia, with Miller, with Chantra and Oliveira, which at some point did go on to fresh rubber. Not all of them were out on fresh soft rear tyres, but clearly benefiting from some new rubber at the end of the session. Fair play to Somkiat Chantra, 9th quickest, without any question his best Friday on the circuit, where we know he does go exceptionally well out in the past.
Here's Ayagura, who ended this morning session in 18th place. They all find their ways here, don't they, to demonstrate their support for their heroes. They are fanatical, to put it mildly, in this part of the world. And Ayagura, of course, as world champion for Japan last year in Moto2, certainly has his many thousands of fans. And the ability was on Motegi this weekend. So Jorge Martin, as you saw there on screens, his best session result for Aprilia so far this year. Slightly caveated by the fact that he put some fresh tyres in late in the session to try and get a further idea as to whether he has solved his issues in time attack mode, which have certainly been his major shortfall so far this season. So very much an on-brand hairdo, that one. 79 on one side of his head, and the MotoGP logo, at least part of it, on the other side. I think we'll be copying that one up here.
Certainly won't. I'm going to say I'm getting some serious hair envy right now, looking at that fan in the grandstand trackside. Fermin Aldeguer then ventures out onto circuit, looking to find some speed and some confidence around this Motegi circuit. Seems rather strange, doesn't it? Well, indicative of just how strong he's been so far this season in his rookie season. Rather unusual to see Aldeguer languishing down in 20th place at the end of FP1 this morning. Stop and go nature, this Motegi circuit. When you look at the layout, vicious hard braking zones into turn 1, turn 3, into 5, into first gear, turn 10, and then probably one of the hardest braking zones in the whole Grand Prix calendar down the hill. That tricky turn 11, a 90-degree corner, which caught out Marco Bezzecchi very early on this morning. What we're about to find out, aren't we? Is Pecco Bagnaia really back? And he rekindle the kind of form which saw him world champion in 2022 and 2023, so nearly the three-peat last year, of course, only defeating a final round decider against Jorge Martin in Barcelona almost 12 months ago. I've got to say, I've got no affinity for Pecco whatsoever, but I do hope that he's back.
We need him back.
Yeah, we need him back. And he's far too good of a rider to be languishing down there where he has been over the last few weeks. It's been quite a sorry sight, actually, to see him at his media debriefs sort of just completely bereft of any confidence. I mean, I think it's fair to say, coming to Japan, this was a full-blown crisis, wasn't it, as far as the Italian was concerned, having had a pretty wretched timing from his home crowd in Misano. So I think every MotoGP fan all around the world will be very happy and content to see Bagnaia back to his best form.
We saw some comments in the media in Misano a couple of weeks ago. I think one or two perhaps slightly misinterpreted. We did see Pecco Bagnaia say across the weekend that he had lost patience with his situation. Before we saw then Gigi Dall'Igna saying, I've also lost patience, which I think was essentially him saying, I'm with Pecco, I agree with him. We all want to see this turn around. Ducati want to see it, Pecco wants to see it, there's many fans who want to see it. Well and truly sticking with him though, there are no at the moment, no signs of any sort of rift or any sort of splitting the camp down there at Ducati. Ducati are putting all of their might and resource and brain power behind trying to bring Pecco Bagnaia out of this slump. Certainly, it would appear that there were steps made at the Misano test, although of course it's always slightly difficult to take too many firm conclusions from a post-Grand Prix test when there is so much rubber and grip on the track surface. But at least for Pecco Bagnaia, he's put the bike on track on a Friday morning and continued on the same vein, in the same vein of form as he had at the previous Grand Prix weekend. We haven't been able to say that recently.
And we know how good he is around Motegi. I guess we'll have to really maybe judge just how much of a resurgence this is potentially for Bagnaia 2 or 3 races further into the campaign. Here is Pecco. This is him at the slowest speed he's ever taken, the 90-degree corner at turn 11. The problem is he just cruising? Is there any particular reason why he's in tour mode? Well, he's coming straight back into the pit lane here at the moment. It's Bagnaia.
He slaloms his way through the pit lane chicane, which saw plenty of action a couple of years ago when they were all flooding in for a flag-to-flag bike change at the end of the warm-up lap. So let's see. We want to see sadly. We cut away from Pecco Bagnaia to see what kind of discussions were going on with his team when he climbed that Ducati up, but certainly wouldn't be coming in at the end of his first time lap by purpose. Ralph Fernandez, meanwhile, is trying to navigate his way back by the service road and the aid of a scooter to get back. Fernandez, who crashed at Aprilia this morning, has had some early problems this afternoon.
So Bagnaia, a shrug of the shoulders, back here at the back of the factory Ducati garage, a shake of the head. So all that kind of positivity gain from leading FP1 this morning. It's just hit the buckles ever so slightly. There's clearly been some kind of early issue, whether that Ducati's locked itself down into a safety mode, whether there's been a warning light come up on the dashboard as far as Bagnaia is concerned. Clearly, at the moment, whatever's going on inside that factory Ducati garage, it's putting Pecco off track at the moment.
We pick out Fabio Quartararo on the factory Yamaha as the rear tyre lifts off the ground as Quartararo pleads that M1 to stop at the end of the back straight as they're breaking from the thick end of 200 miles an hour, 315 kilometers an hour down to around about 80 k's for the 90-degree corner, turn 11 before Victory Corner, turn 14. Fabio Quartararo has yet to take a victory here at the Motegi circuit. He's into 7th place on 45.8. For reference, that's around about 3/10 of a second slower than he went in FP1 this morning.
Yamaha winners on home serve since Hoy Lorenzo was victorious here back in 2014. Marco Bezzecchi is certainly trying to make up for lost time, isn't he, right now after his 2 spills in FP1 this morning. One of them actually was coming up down in the hill into turn 11. As we look inside the Ducati Lenovo garage to try and diagnose what was going on with Bagnaia.
I think that was the electronics engineer, Gabriele Conti, who was having a good look at the dashboard of Bagnaia's machine. We do sometimes talk tongue-in-cheek about the mysterious electronic problem or sensor issue that comes up during these practice sessions, but perhaps that was what happened there for Pecco Bagnaia. Perhaps a warning telling him stop the bike before we do any further damage. For all the damage at the moment has been done to Pecco Bagnaia's session, although we do still have an awful long way to go in this.
Number 1 in Japan. Well, not for the first time we've said that in 2025 as far as Johan Zarco is concerned, of course. Already tasted some great success in this part of the world on 2 wheels this year. Back-to-back wins in the prestigious Suzuka 8-hour endurance race. Certainly getting a few brownie points with HRC as far as Johan Zarco is concerned, and he's started pretty well in this afternoon's practice session, a 144.429 from the LTR Honda rider. 44.4. Second faster Zarco already under what he manages. Well, only 3 riders this morning. Bagnaia, Martin and Mark who are in the 144s. So straight away we've got Zarco, Aldeguer, Binder and Mir for the first time in those 144s. We've got yellow flags out in sector 2.
It's another Aprilia. This time it's Jorge Martin.
I was going to say, let's hope it's not, well, we didn't want any Aprilia, but Marco Bezzecchi was not going to want to go for the unwanted hat-trick on day 1. So turn 5 this morning caught out Morbidelli. I think then just reacting to Morbidelli spilled directly behind him went down Jack Miller. Martin's been able to quickly remount his crashed Aprilia. No problem for a rider. Have a listen then to Martin attacking down then into this hard braking lap of 5. was off throttle there, so he was just trail braking into that turn 5 when the front tyre wasn't able to hang in there underneath it. So a quick look at Martin. He was out on a medium front soft rear. A bit of a half and half split really in terms of the riders early thinking in this session rear tyre wise. You've got Martin, Zarco, Marini, Morbidelli, Bastianini, Nakagami, the HRC wildcard, Chantra, Mia, Miller, Agu and Oliveira all at the moment on the soft rear tyre. Tell you what, Fermin Aldeguer hasn't taken him too long to bounce back from an average P1 this morning.
So this was Marc Marquez going in hot there into turn 3. So a slightly scrappy start to the afternoon for the factory Ducati team. Marc Marquez in 15th and Pecco Bagnaia yet to register a time. Do we understand the reason why, Jim?
Yeah. So you guys instantly thought it was electronics, did I as well, but when he came in, they didn't plug the laptop in, there were no wires connected to the dashboard. They went down to the left-hand side and started just playing with the pressure, potentially, I'm guessing, maybe an issue with the rear ride height device. Now, a lot has been made this year of the differences between the 24 and the 25. A lot of smarter people than me are thinking that potentially one of the issues that's causing Pecco's lack of feeling on the front end is the slightly revised rear ride height device that was introduced on the GP25. Davide has spoken a lot about how it's almost the GP24 configuration they've gone back to. Nobody's confirmed, but potentially, whether included in that, is they finally reverted Pecco back to that GP24 ride height device. We'll ask him at the end of the day and try and find out, but it definitely wasn't electronics. It was a pretty quick fix for Pecco to get back out.
Thanks very much, Jack. I'm a bit disappointed we can't blame the mystery electrical fault as they so often do. Zarco now. We just saw a replay of Zarco, how hard he was working the front tyre down the hill into. Of course, the riders and teams, well, it's obligatory here this weekend. They're on the higher mass 340 or 355 mil brake disc just because of the excessive temperature build-up in the disc because of all the hard braking zones here in Japan. That's why Martin starts the debrief after his crash at turn 5. I guess the best possible news is Martin hasn't even bothered to remove his helmet or his gloves. He's quite eager to get the second bike preps and get back out there pretty quickly, isn't he? The Martinator. Aldeguer is just jumped from 20th this morning into P1 this afternoon at 144.423 from the Gresini Racing rider. That's a massive improvement from Aldeguer, 1.3 seconds faster than what he managed this afternoon. As we await the return onto the track. And Marc Marquez, Pecco Bagnaia has made it back out on circuit. Let's see what he can do now as he gets into his rhythm in this practice session.
Well, certainly Honda will be pleased with how the session's looking this early stage because they've got 4 bikes at the moment. Right up in the top 10. Zarco 2nd, Mir 3rd, Nakagami the wildcard 9th, and Luca Marini in 10th place. The only rider not in the top 10 was in the top 10 earlier on today. That's Sonket Chantra, who's currently in 14th place. Let's head down to pit lane then and get a word from the VR46 camp with Frankie Morbidelli currently in 6th place.
Yeah, we'll touch on this weekend with Pablo in a second, but coming into this weekend, Pablo, we've had confirmation from the Gresini squad that Alex Marquez will be going up to a GP26, a factory update. No confirmation from you guys yet on what machinery you'll have next year. So that's the question. What are you running next year?
No, we will have the so we will have one factory bike for Ninja, 26, and factory bike from 25 from. We continue with the same plan. We have the option to get the bike for Franco. We decided to don't get it. That's why Ducati gave the bike.
Why did you turn down the chance for Frankie to move up to the factory bike?
Because in the end, we think that the change between 25 and 26 is not going to be the same, almost same bike. Of course, Ducati they will prepare something for the future, but I think it's going to be more focused on 27. So this is my personal opinion, our personal opinion. So we decided to make it like this. We can see that the 25 bike, for example, with Mark and with Dija is fantastic, and we decided to make it that.
Been obvious issues with the GP25 this year to try and get the maximum out of it. having one more full factory bike next year, do you think that's a positive for Ducati?
Good question. I tell you the truth, I don't know. Could be, because in the end like this is one more bike on track, so that means that maybe they can have more information for working on the bike, but also it's true that the bike is in the 27 is going to be a different bike, but a lot of things can work and we can use it in the same bike. So that means we can make also progress steps and we can see how it's going everything.
Within the regulations, Frankie can stay with the GP24 engine going into next year. Is there a possibility he does that? I mean, obviously, it's also been spoken about in pre-season, but given the challenges with the GP25, it's like to just say, give me what I know and let me have what I've had this year.
But in the end, it's not so different. So between one bike and the other one, it's not so the difference are not so big. I mean, for example, in the past, 23 to 24, the bike was completely different. The step was completely bigger, much more bigger. In now, 24 to 25, it is a difference, but not so big. So that's not sense. So in the end, I think that's why we continue to make something like that, no? Because in the end, 26 to 25 should be not so big difference.
Thanks, Tableau. Oh, and whilst we've got you as well, I should ask, Frankie, crashed this morning, all okay?
Yeah, all okay. We know this track is, you have to take a little bit care about the braking point, so normal crash here in Motegi. But looks like we are working in a good way, no? We can see the last races always fighting for the top 5, also we make a pot. In the sprint race, so we have to continue like this.
Thanks, Pablo.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. Thanks to Pablo Nieto, very enlightening interview, wasn't it, with Jack down in pit lane? You know, it sounds like. Then Pablo Nieto was confirmed there. Pertamina Enduro VR46 had first pick on the 4th GP26. Felt that it wasn't going to be a significant enough performance on grade to go for it for Frankie. And open the door for Alex Marquez.
Well, I have to take him at face value on that one. I have to say, if I was Ducati, if they were in any way able to influence that decision, surely you'd want Alex Marquez, second in the World Championship this year, to be on one of those GP26s next season. He has earned that right, and Frankie Morbidelli's reaction to that will be quite interesting as to which motorcycle he would have preferred to have been on for next season, whether it's a 25 or a 26. Clearly, it will be the GP25 for Frankie Morbidelli next year.
Yeah, and a GP25 at the moment, that doesn't seem to be fully functioning for Pecco Bagnaia, does it? He went out and did a 3-lap stint, having done an aborted first run, did Bagnaia, and as we saw, he was immediately back into the back of the garage with Christian Gamperini's crew chief, Gigi Dall'Igna, Ducati course tech guru, right on the scene as well. Something wasn't working because Pecco did those 3 laps and was in the 146s. It's been a rather strange start to this practice session this afternoon because we've got Bagnaia, who was first this morning, now last. Jorge Martina was second this morning, now second last. And Marc Marquez was third this morning, and now third from last.
So this should be upside down.
Somebody just flipped the timing screens, haven't they, at the moment?
Now Aldeguer has gone from 20th up to first in this session. Zarco and Mir on the Hondas right behind him, but the factory Ducati riders, as having a good look at the rear of Pecco Bagnaia's machine, plus Marc Marquez's machine also sat in the other side of the box, both of his bikes. They've done 6 laps between them of Marc Marquez and Pecco Bagnaia, and we're past the 1/4 mark in this session.
Yeah, not really plan A coming to fruition as far as the factory Ducati team are concerned at the moment. Zarco still second, Mir third. Miguel Oliveira, 2 Yamahas at the moment inside the top 6. Oliveira in 5th place. Are we hearing right, Lewis, that Oliveira looks like he's about to tie up the BMW Factory World Superbike seat alongside Danilo Petrucci?
Would appear to be that way, and would be a great asset, wouldn't he, to the World Superbike paddock. Oliveira was a multi-time winner in MotoGP over the years, 5 MotoGP victories, and when you look at what is such an illustrious MotoGP field, there are not many riders, not as many as you think, who can say that. So Oliveira who clearly has had his fair share of injury issues over the last couple of years. Seems that every time he hurts himself in a big way. Of course, losing out in that battle over the final Pramac seat with Jack Miller to partner Toprak Practice for next season. It looks like Toprak and Miguel are going to be in a seat swap there the next season.
It's been a pretty tough Friday so far as far as Alex Marquez is concerned. A bit of a shrug of the shoulders from Alex. He was, as mentioned this morning, only 15th fastest, but almost 6.5 tenths back at Bagnaia. At the moment, he's down in 17th, unable to get himself out of the low 145. 8 tenths at the moment behind his teammate Fermin Aldeguer. It looks from our position, Jack, that it's pretty tough going for the riders second in the World Championship. What's your view of it?
Yeah, he confirmed that actually during the lunch break. I was lucky enough just to grab a very quick word with him during Inside the Paddock, which I should say is available on all of MotoGP social media channels every Friday and Saturday at midday. And he was saying that the front end feeling he described as being very strange. Of course, he said the front end feeling is so important, the amount of time that you have hard onto the anchors. He just couldn't explain the feeling he was having. He was confident that they were able to find some solutions going into the afternoon, but exactly as you guys say, he's slumped in the back of the box, a bit of a head shake, and clearly what the hopes were going to be the answer aren't right now.
Thank you very much, Jack. And as so many riders, of course, get very special, handcrafted, handmade gifts for their heroes, well, the Jack Appiah Japanese fan club has been out in full force today in the paddock. Yeah, Jack's got a very big
swelling in numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, of course, we're two fully paid up members, aren't we, here in the commentary box. So still Aldeguer then that leads as we're about to move into complete the first third of this hour-long practice session. Here's Mark. That's what we worked out from as we're going into the braking zone for turn 5. Aldeguer leads then. Zarco, Mia, Morbidelli is the top Ducati at the moment. Sorry, Aldeguer, of course, is the top Ducati. Morbidelli 4th, ahead of Oliveira. Ferraro 6th. Pedro Acosta once again, he's leading the KTM charge, although Brad Binder's found some speed as well this afternoon. Binder into the 44s quite comfortably. He's another rider that's shaved about a second off his best pace this morning.
At the moment, still very, very early days. I'm sure it will all turn around before the session comes to a close in 40 minutes' time. But whenever they order for lunch at Ducati, they were saying cancel it and don't order it again for tomorrow. Because at the moment, the only two Ducatis that are inside the top 10 of the GP24s of Fermin Aldeguer and Miguel and Frankie Morbidelli 4th, just ahead of Miguel Oliveira's Pramac Yamaha in 5th. We've got at the moment Bagnaia 23rd, with of course Raul Fernandez now finally on the board after his delayed start to the session. Marquez 21st, Gian Antonio 19th, and Alex Marquez 18th. It is like MotoGP has been turned upside down this afternoon so far.
Trying to rectify his issues at the moment is Mark. Over the line he goes. Not too often at this stage of the afternoon practice session have we had to go all the way down to 21st place to take out the runaway World Championship leader. That's as it stands though right now here in scorching hot conditions in Motegi. Nothing that left though now to want to get that Ducati settled into turn 3. This will be two of Mark's favourite corners here in Motegi. The left-handers of 3 and 4. Just to look how quickly we're trying to pick that GP25 up onto the fat part of the pant tyre, trying to maximise the grip coming out of that turn 4. Just a little bit unsettled on the brakes, isn't it, as well, going into turn 5. Well, two different stories unfolding right now as far as Gudrini Racing are concerned. Fermin Aldeguer flying, fastest in the practice session. Alex Marquez struggling down in 18th place, of course. Fresh off the news, he'll have a full factory GP26 in 2026. Let's get our thoughts to the boss, Michele Massini, who joins Jack.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll touch on that news first, guys, because I think we all agree, Michele, fully deserving, given the performances this year, that Alex will get that full factory bike next year. You must be really proud of all of the team's efforts to allow him to get that reward.
Yeah, fully deserved and really proud of this achievement for Alex, for his effort and his result of the season, and also of the team, also because I think that from 2022 we still needing season by season, every time better, every year better. So really proud of that. Now we have to be focused on the final race of the championship. try for sure to secure the second place at least. But now we are focused on the practice here in Motegi that we struggle a bit to find the right front feeling with in the hard braking. But
Just on that 26 upgrade, I was just speaking to Pablo Nieto, and he said the only reason Alex has got the upgrade is because Frankie Morbidelli said he didn't want it. Is that true?
this is not my point to reply to VR46. Maybe better to talk with Ducati about that. I think that Gresini will still made an amazing seasons in but so we are just focused on the working.
Touching on this weekend then, we've seen some struggles for Alex this morning and this afternoon as well. He said that front feeling just isn't there right now. Just talk us through some of the problems he's having and why we're seeing a bit of a strange start to the session. Have track conditions changed ever so slightly?
Yeah, now it's more slippery with the hot temperature of the asphalt. It's true also that in F1 we always have to put the soft and the hard tire if we don't use the medium for the weekend. So we need to find the compromise. But anyway, now we have to work on the medium because it will be soil as always. And so we have to try something to give to Alex the right feedback, especially in the hard braking, in the straight, in the first part of the turn. So we will see.
Thanks, Michele.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks to Gresini boss Michele Massini. Yeah, well, Alex is currently sat on his backside in the garage waiting for some setup tweaks to hopefully find some front-end confidence. He's actually now been pushed all the way back down to 22nd place on the time screens. Mark has just started to work his way back to a normal situation, up to 9th with a 144.753. It's a good point there, made mind Michele Massini. If you are missing any kind of front feeling and confidence in the heavy braking zones here in Motegi, well, you're going to be in a whole world of pain because that's what this circuit is dominated by. As we mentioned this morning, Brembo, they have a sort of grading for the braking severity at all of our Grand Prix circuits from 1 to 6. This is a 6. It doesn't really get any tougher for the brakes anywhere on the Grand Prix calendar than right here in Motegi. So you do get the feeling that in the hot and humid conditions, a little bit more slick, a bit more greasy out there. A lot of riders are just finding or trying to search for that optimal feeling on the front end.
Temperatures as hot as they are, as Michele Massini also pointed out, track rather slippery this afternoon. Gian Antonio is going slightly early here with a soft rear tyre put in. That's the information on the bottom of your screens that he has put a brand new soft rear tyre in for this run he's currently on, which looks like it could take him all the way to the top of the times. We'll follow Digia through the final corner on the 49. 15th at the moment. It's about to be transformed into P1 and a 144.294. He's a 10th clear now of Birmingham. Again, Bagnaya's first real representative lap of the afternoon puts him into 12th place, although he is still on tyres these ran already today.
Through KTM are having a bit of a punishing Friday here. Hey, Motegi Viñales 21st this morning. Bastianini was dead last, and they're right at the wrong end of the leaderboard at the moment as well. Bastianini down in 21st place, as you're able to find a 44 on day 1. Viñales, we know he's going to be struggling. Viñales is probably, when you look at the Grand Prix we've got left in the calendar, this is probably going to be the toughest for Maverick, given the fact that he's still lacking mobility and strength in that left shoulder. Of course, you use so much of your upper body in the severe braking zones. And there's 8 severe braking zones here in Japan. It's going to be a weekend of survival for Viñales. 45.189, his best so far. Well, Ayagura, of course, having the pleasure of racing in front of his home crowd of MotoGP for the first time this weekend. A little bit sore, a little bit beaten up after his heavy crash in Misano a couple of weeks ago. Let's get some thoughts halfway through this practice session from the Trackhouse boss, Davide.
Yeah, it is indeed. Great to be chatting to Davide, as you guys say, ahead of the debut of I in about fans. But I saw yesterday when you caught up with I in the paddock, you were asking how he was, in particular that left hand. I think I said it was one of the fastest crashes of his career in Misano 2 weeks ago, so no surprise he was a little bit faster than bruised afterwards. How is he after this morning?
Yeah, you have to consider that in Misano he crashed for over 260 kilometers per hour, and it was very scary and very lucky we came out like this. Yeah, he had the pain in the everybody kept working for all these 10 days. This morning went quite well, a little bit of pain, but he could ride. He did 18 laps, 19 laps almost all in the row, so not so bad. This afternoon, I saw before when he stopped, he didn't take off the gloves, so I wonder if it's like to prevent the part of pain or if it's a pain, but let's see. It's quite a strong, of course, special weekend, a lot of fun around, a lot of people, line, cap, t-shirts and whatever, so for sure it's a little bit of a thing that let's work around that.
Do you think that although he never shows it, he's always so cool, he's always so, I don't want to say emotionless, but he's a very serious character, but having all of the support this weekend, having the event in Tokyo on Wednesday, do you think that is just giving him an extra boost? He's feeling that pressure of a home Grand Prix?
Yeah, I think so. Probably he's not the type of guy that shows that, but I mean, you can be insensitive, you know, and neutral to all these emotions, so I'm sure the feeling is something different.
Finally, saw the barriers up around one of Raul's bike. It's parked in on that. Has he had an issue? Is he down to one bike?
Yeah, I would say the bike just stopped, and so we're trying to understand what's happened. Probably, I mean, I saw the guy working on electric parts and components and whatever. And we have to try to find out what's happened.
Yeah, thanks, Davide. You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks to Trackhouse boss Davide Brivio. Thanks as always to Jack. The two Fabios, the Gian Antonio and Quartararo, have gone early for a fresh soft Michelin rubber, and it has paid dividends already for Quartararo on a factory Yamaha. A 144.044 has put Quartararo at the top of the leaderboard. A bit of an aero package comparison here, as you can see on the screens, for number 93 Mark. Marc Marquez has said as soon as he gets this year's MotoGP World Championship in the books, which could be, of course, here this weekend, well, he'll then start to focus on preparations for 2026. Well, he could have 5 full Grand Prix to prep, couldn't he, for 2026, as looking very relaxed as he should be. Davide Tardozzi there, factory Ducati team boss, because he knows it's going to be imminent that they are celebrating yet another World Championship success. This time around for Mark. To Marco Bezzecchi as well. We just mentioned Quartararo has leapt to the top of the leaderboard. It doesn't seem that the two crashes he had this morning at 11 and 5 have really upset the rhythm of Bezzecchi too much, because he's got down to a 144.095 himself, which 500s covered Quartararo and Bez at the top of the standings.
Well, even this morning, when Bezzecchi was on the racetrack and on his Aprilia, he was reasonably fast on it. We just didn't see him for often enough in the session to really draw a firm impression as to how Bezzecchi was going. Really carrying so much confidence into this Japanese Grand Prix weekend, perhaps confidence that ever so slightly got the better of him. So Quartararo now to the top of the session on board the Yamaha. What are they doing technically wise? Jack's having a close eye on the moments.
I told you this morning about that new exhaust system that caught me by surprise, really, that Yamaha was still throwing items at this inline four. Well, it's now disappeared across all 4 riders, back to the original Yamaha when M1 exhaust for the lot of them. It'll be interesting to speak later on this afternoon when the riders come through exactly Yamaha were trying to find and discover with that slightly different exhaust. And whilst I've got you as well, guys, put the facts for this weekend and for everyone at home. Hopefully we don't see them anyway, because we never like to, but this should be the very first Grand Prix weekend where we don't see any yellow flags. That's because around this Motegi circuit we're only going to have light panels in use this weekend, which is a Grand Prix first. So a nice little fun facts for you there.
Thanks very much for that information, Jack. Let's hope that the marshals still do have some flags for the Sunday morning show, Lewis.
Yeah, usually look forward to that. Actually, it's one of the highlights of the Japanese Grand Prix weekend as we do the reconnaissance lap in the BMW Sunday morning. The marshals put on quite a show. They're going to have to improvise on Sunday morning to keep us entertained. I'm sure they will.
I do remember years ago when we had actually I think we had a camera in the safety car, which did a lap, and myself and Steve down in the commentary box at the time were almost on the floor. We probably got the giggles. Me and my good buddy Steve, as Jack Miller has a little bit of a run up into the gravel at turn 1. No drama though for the Australian as we pick up Brad Binder. You can see the sun already starting to set up into the background. Lots of riders have gone early here, haven't they, with a new soft rear tyre. We certainly know Quartararo, the two Fabios, that's Quartararo, and the Gian Antonio certainly did. Costa has done as well on the factory KTM. Him up into third place. Firming Aldeguer, who did so much of the early front running in this practice session, has just been bumped back down to fifth. What about a check on some of our big hitters? Mark 12th, Bagnaia 13th, and Alex Marquez. Well, it really has been a dismal Friday afternoon so far for Alex, who has to make sure if this championship does need to roll on into Mandalika next weekend, he can't lose 3 points or more to mark here this weekend. Well, it's been a fraught Friday to say the least. Alex at the moment, rock bottom.
Well, to my knowledge, from checking back, neither Mark nor Alex have been in a Q1 session all season long. At the moment, they're both going through it as the yellow flags come out. And Marco Bezzecchi went down twice this morning. Jorge Martinez copied it this afternoon. Crash number 2 for the world champion.
Well, there's some contests going on right now between Martin and Bezzecchi. Not a contest, a pretty one. Who's going to have the most crashes in the 2025 Japanese Grand Prix? And what the scores are equal now, it's 2 apiece. Jorge Martin then for the second time on day one here. This is a quick get up as well, going through turn 7. The left-hander front end washing out from underneath Martin. That's a third gear, 115 kilometers an hour get off there for Martin.
Potentially, we're in the same boat that his teammate was in earlier on today. He's going to have one bike at the most available to him this afternoon or the end of this session. There's more yellow flags out, and Alex Marquez this afternoon goes from bad to worse. He's P23, and now he's got a bike in the gravel track.
Yeah, these are really testing conditions, aren't they, right now? The heat and humidity has made this a real slick Motegi surface. I mean, at the moment, this Friday afternoon session's a battle of survival, isn't it?
And I do wonder as well, with the sun starting to set again, will that drop again? Past 3, and the sun set around 5:30, so we're not far away from darkness here in Motegi, but the darkness is all on Alex Marquez at the moment, whose afternoon, just when he thinks it can't get any worse, it gets worse.
Well, he's been sat in the garage for quite some time, as Alex, waiting for some setup tweaks, looking for some front-end confidence. Well, that's going to do anything but give him some front-end confidence, isn't it? At the front, watches out then going through turn 9. And this has happened when Alex has mentioned his right at the back end of the timesheet. So 145.242. Fair play to Ralph Fernandez after his early tech gremlins on his number 1 Aprilia RSGP. Has just got himself up into the top 10 with a 144.614. That has matched the pace of Morbidelli. So 2 crashes this morning for Bezzecchi, 2 crashes now this afternoon for Martin. There's going to be some serious repair work going on overnight in that Nawali garage. What's the latest on Martin? Jack, down to you.
Yeah, the good news for Jorge is that he's not back in the box yet, but when he does, he'll be. But the bike that he crashed early in the session is ready to go. They're just bolted in both the front and the rear tyre, but all of the repair work that needed to be done has been done. So Martin, once he gets back to the box, can pretty much get back out there straight away.
Good stuff as far as Martin and his spans are concerned. At top end of the circuit, we pick up Mark. The hairpin curve, turn 10, first gear, down to about 70 kilometers an hour before then you really did get to see MotoGP bike stretch its legs from first to 6th gear, and then on board with Mark into this vicious braking zone, down into the 90-degree corner. He'll then back your left through 12 and 13, and then right through the victory corner. With the victory to seal his 7th MotoGP World Championship. 2016, 2018 and 2019. Mark did win titles with victories. It always just makes that sort of championship success that a little bit sweet, doesn't it? It's almost the cherry on the top of the cake. As Raul Fernandez, well, he wasn't using the rear tyre, but instead wanted to stop that Aprilia down into turn 11. Spectacular to watch Raul go about his business here in this fourth split. He is another rider that's gone early with a soft rear tyre. Already just nudged himself up into P10 on his last lap. Where's this taking the Spanish rider? Over the line he goes. It's taken him to 7th So Raul Fernandez down to a 44.432.
Of course, in addition to the problems you alluded to at the start of this session, of course, he went down this morning too in practice 1. So in total, we're up to 5 prettier crashes on this opening day in Japan. And at the moment, Raul Fernandez and Marco Bezzecchi heading through to qualifying 2 tomorrow. Jorge Martin, of course, with his 2 crashes. At the moment, with Ayagura outside the top 10, Ayagura down in 20th place, although he is within a second of the outright fastest lap time. And in fact, from Jack Miller in 8th all the way down to Ayagura in 20th, less than half a second covers the lot of them.
I was just about to say, no sleep tonight for the Aprilia spare parts department, but none of us are getting sleep at the moment, are we? We've got none of us are getting much sleep at the moment with a jet lag. I think most of us from Europe to the Far East, as Bagnaia is back in once again on the factory Ducati. Almost 2/3 then now of this practice session completed, and we do not have either factory Ducati at the moment troubling the top 10. Mark 13th, Bagnaia 1 place behind him in 14th spot. Martin's 2 crashes this afternoon have left him down in 19th. One of the big stories of the day so far is clearly Alex Marquez's woes. 15th in FP1 at the moment after his crash just moments ago at turn 9. Well, Alex, if he is to continue this impressive record of being bluntly with the Q2 in every Grand Prix so far this year, he's got it all on. He's given himself a massive task here in Motegi to continue that run going. I mean, what does Alex need? He needs 0.6 of a second. He's got
very much aiming at a moving target. That target time just currently at 44.6. It'll be lower than that by the time the session comes to a close. And of course, they're aiming at a bit of a moving target in terms of track conditions and track temperature as well, with 20 minutes still to go in this practice session. Alex Rins on screen has also gone for a soft rear tyre, although he's not getting much use out of it on this first lap of the run. Rins currently in 15th place on 44.8. He needs to find minimum a quarter of a second to get into the top 10.
It is worth noting, I'm sure you spotted at home on your screens, this is Mark out on worn medium front and medium rear tyres. So this is clearly Mark just still working on his race setup. A lot of riders ahead of him on the timing screens will have already gone for a soft rear tyre. So clearly there is plenty more to come from Mark when he does decide to go into time attack mode. As Alex, well, he's in sprint mode as he comes to the back of the gate. He's got his leathers on, hasn't he, at the moment?
He's not copying Mark's celebration from Pisano there.
No. Has anybody got a set of leathers that Alex Marquez can borrow to get out on circuit for this the remainder of this afternoon session? Yes, what is already one of Mark's most memorable celebrations. We should touch upon that, of course, after his brilliant success, withstanding that pressure, that onslaught from Marco Bezzecchi and the Misano World Circuit, Marco Simoncelli. I mean, he told the media after he got from a minority of Misano fans a bit of a hostile reception and a few jeers and boos after he crashed out the lead in the sprint on Saturday. I think even on Saturday night, Mark was going, if I win the race on Sunday, I'm doing the Messi. And then we saw the behind-the-scenes footage. I'm sure you've seen it on our social media channels. He was taking the leathers off in the cool-down room, and he said to Mark, I'm doing the Messi. Of course, this is all a tribute to a footballing icon, Leo Messi, who did that at the Bernabeu Stadium when he was getting a fairly hostile reception from Real Madrid fans, when, of course, he was very much part of the FC Barcelona. And as Mark mentioned after the Grand Prix, Leo Messi did his talking on the pitch. I do my talking on the track. And boy, did he do that in Misano last time out. It was a very, very cool celebration.
And I think any critics of Marc Marquez, Mark can just show them his trophy collection, which is potentially going to grow by 1 here this weekend. And in terms of the point situation, it might be a mere formality the way Alex Marquez is going to outscore him by 3 points, although that could all still turn around. Alex Marquez has not had many crises to suffer from this season. Perhaps the Friday afternoon in Brno might be the most obvious when he crashed late on. Still managed to get back out on track and rescue a place in the top 10. So he has overcome setbacks already this season in Alex Marquez, but this perhaps maybe the biggest he's faced so far, as Marc Marquez now returns to the pits, and one suspects the next time you see him on track, he'll be on much fresher rubber.
Yeah, I mean, Mark's best time so far in this session is a 1:44.753. You just know minimum. He's going to find half a second, 0.6 of a second immediately when he goes onto a fresh soft rear tyre. Here is the 93 then, attacking hard, the double right-hander to kick off the lap turns 1 and turn 2. Great shot from our inside camera there, Mark just sort of tickling the tarmac with his knee and his elbow around that first corner. Here is Quartararo, likewise El Diablo, as it stands. All moving it's with that 1:44.044. So we get a sort of riding style comparison, don't we? Lean, mean, fighting machines. Look at that from Jorge Martin. That is some shot. He already got a bit of dust on the boots there from crash number 1. He was on the floor not long after that replay, unfortunately, with Martin. He's got fresh leathers on and gets himself ready to try and improve on 20th place. And fresh leathers finally then for Alex, who has got to find some serious speed and some serious time if he is to threaten a place in Q2.
Alex Rins has just lifted himself up into the top 10 now. He's done a 44.4. He's up into 5th place. This is, well, not the full reason why Alex Marquez is still going 23rd, but certainly part of the reason into turn 9. He's now looking at the screens and won't particularly enjoy what he's seeing.
Yeah, Alex has just gone to his crew. I told you I'd no front end feeling.
Change the channel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, can we go to something a little bit more pleasing on the eye? Just see how hot the conditions are in Japan. You can see the sweat on the brow of Marc Marquez. The wet hair is just inside the helmet. Hard work. Acclimatising, I guess, for what's going to be very hot and humid conditions over on the spectacular holiday island of Lombok next weekend. Will Marc Marquez go there as the 2025 MotoGP World Champion? We won't have too long to wait to find out. We'll have the answer in about 48 hours' time. As Marco Bezzecchi gets a fist bump from one of his Aprilia crew. Some salvage job this by Bez, to be fair to him. I don't care what anybody says, when you crash twice in the same session, crash twice in 7.5 laps, it's going to erode a little bit of confidence, but the bounce back has been impressive from Bez.
So it's Yamaha, Aprilia, KTM, Ducati, Yamaha, the top 5, Aldeguer's Ducati 6, Zarco's Honda 7, Ralph Fernandez is pretty at 8, Morbidelli's Ducati 9, and Jack Miller 10. A nod to one of our colleagues back at HQ, Luke Godfrey from the social media team, who points out that the last time neither of the factory Ducati Lenovo team riders made Q2 was Dobby and Petrucci, Valencia 2020. Surely not. Surely we're not in for any sort of repeat, although they have given themselves a slightly slim margin for error. Being as low as they are, in 14th and 15th, if we get a final quarter of an hour littered with yellow flags, they've not got a lap time to fall back on.
Thumbs up for Martin, he's ready to go. To get himself back into the fray. Likewise is Alex, who has a lot of work to do, doesn't he, in the Motegi Mountain? A bit of a mountain and a climb, I guess you could say, for Alex, down in 23rd place. Here is Bagnaia then, just getting those tyres up to working temperature. Costa has just set the fastest first sector of this opening day here in Japan. Costa's 1:44.243, a few moments to go. That might already be good enough to see Costa go directly through to Q2. We're on board then now with Bagnaia. Hard on the gas on the factory Ducati. And breaks into turn 5. This is a braking zone that's so easy to get wrong. We saw Bez go down there this morning. We've seen Martin on the floor there already this afternoon. And we're one of the fastest corners here in Motegi. Under the tunnel through turn 6. We go now left through 7. This is a good lap being fired in by Bagnaia. And Acosta's really on the charge, isn't he? Acosta already 3rd, the fastest. Pole position here last year for Acosta, and he's looking to wrestle back P1.
Yeah, Acosta did a 43.0 last year for pole position. It's a 44.0 he's currently aiming at. He's not the only rider aiming at it. Bagnaia, Marini, Di Gianantonio and Acosta are all up partway through their laps as Bagnaia now makes his way down the back straight, and he's right in touch. But it's not Quartararo who'll be quickest by the time he gets to the line.
Costa, look how he's ringing the neck of that KTM and the victory corner, and it's good enough to slot himself into P1. First 143 of the day here then in Japan. And 1-3 for Costa. Shout out to Somkiat Chantra, who's just set his best lap time of the session up into P13. Goes the tyre rider Marini, now the factory Honda sees his top spot. Bagnaia up to 5th. That's a big improvement from Bagnaia. 17th to 5th, but in front of all the Honda hierarchy here in their home Grand Prix. Marini with a 143.884 P1.
So all 5 manufacturers are represented in the top 5. Ducati, the slowest of them at the moment. It's Marini for Honda, Acosta's KTM, Quartararo's Yamaha, and Betseki's Aprilia, all ahead of the first of the Ducatis, Pecco Bagnaia.
Yeah, this is a brilliant lap coming in from Bez. Stunning lap coming in from Bez under the second of the tunnels. A really good lap as well, being fired in by Acosta, who's got some lovely temperature in his Michelin soft rubber right now. Acosta's really rapid. He might have to be pushing back to 3rd place at the moment though right now, Acosta. Indeed he does, because Bezzecchi with a 1:43.623. Yeah, no wonder they're so happy inside the factory at Aprilia garage. Bears on the floor twice this morning, and now P1 this afternoon.
Bagnaia also rallying on his second time lap on that soft tyre. He's going quickly too, as we pick up Alex Marquez, looking to lift himself up from the very bottom of the standings at the moment. It cannot get any worse for Alex Marquez. The only way is up from here.
Yeah, Alex at the moment then down by almost 0.3 of a second, halfway around in this lap. Chantra has just come up into 7th on the Honda LCR machine. Shout out, a massive one to Chantra. Acosta then does indeed wrestle back top spot. We saw that one coming. 43.557 from Acosta. He's getting accustomed to being in P1 here in Japan. The Somkiat Chantra is threatening a giant killing out here in Japan, up to P7.
This is anybody's today, don't worry about that. So many unpredictable elements to this. Bagnaia goes into 3rd, but he's a 1/4 second adrift of Acosta. And Alex Marquez, if it does get him into the top 10 of this lap, it won't be by much.
It's nowhere near the top 10. I think it was estimated P17 for Alex. So he's got to find some speed big time. The Gian Antonio further up the road has just come into P3. On the VR46 race in Ducati, but Alex Marquez, yeah, up to 16th. All the 4s for Alex, 44.444 as Fabio Quartararo goes grass tracking on the exit. And that's a shame for Quartararo, because he was on a real strong lap through the first half of the circuit. Here is Fabio. Oh! He's done well to stay on 2 wheels there as Quartararo
as well.
He's done really, really well there. Well, chapeau to the Frenchman.
Doing his job there as well. He saw how deep he was in the gravel by the time he got through it. So Marc Marquez is in uncharted territory here by his 2025 season at least. 20th place. He now does, though, for the first time in this afternoon session, have a soft rear tyre. So what does the 93 truly have up his sleeve this afternoon?
How costly could that mistake be for Quartararo going into 9, because he needed that lap he was on. And he was on potentially a top 3 lap, and now in the gravel trap, still upright, but he's been pushed back down to 8th, and he's sort of creeping back towards that danger zone, isn't he? On screens, Mark 19th, Alex 23rd. No, there's not a problem with our graphics. That is exactly the situation here in Japan. The Marquez siblings are probably having their worst Friday of the campaign so far. At the moment, Mark only moving up 6th place from 20th to 14th. The Gian Antonio rapid in the 3rd sector, a 43.721 from Digio moments ago, putting a bit of P3. That might be good enough for a place in Q2. He's making sure, though. Ralph Hernandez up into 8th place. Quartararo now back in 9th. The Gian Antonio was not able to improve on that current lap. Yellow flags now out in sector 3. This will not be affecting Alex, but it could be decisive in the back end of this session.
Alex up to 5th now. Martin takes 4th, so 2nd and 4th for the Aprilia team. Marc Marquez was ahead of whatever has brought out the yellow flags. Looks like a VR46 Ducati, according to the track map that has gone down. Which of those is in the 3rd sector? I think it's Frankie Morbidelli who might be the cause of those. So yellow's out in the sector 3. It is Morbidelli who's gone down. So Marc Marquez, 21st, up to only P11.
Gained the 10 places there, didn't he? So now it's 2 crashes on day 1 for Bears, 2 crashes for Martin, and 2 crashes now for Morbidelli. It's been a bit of a crash-strewn Friday here in Japan as Morbidelli walks away from the scene of the crime. Let's just have a check on what's happened to Frankie. Fabio Quartararo got away with it. Morbidelli didn't. Tips to left into turn 9. Almost a carbon copy crash of Alex Marquez. Fair play to Alex, who's good deep to find that 43.784. Is that good enough to get him into Q2? Well, this is the ball. Mark's rolled out of this one, hasn't he? Looked over his left shoulder, didn't he, there? So this will not be allowed at this stage. Just going to put Mark into Q2.
Well, Alex Marquez has dug himself out of a pretty serious hole, at least at this stage. Now it's up to Marc Marquez to do the same, because that didn't cut it. A 43.9 is not going to be enough for Marc Marquez to get himself into the top 10. It is so close. 8.5 tenths covers the top 20. Remember early on in the session when we were singing Fermin Aldeguer's praises? He's now 20th.
Second cup in the top 20. What a weekend, what a day it's already been here. Potentially the biggest weekend of the season so far. Marc Marquez is going to clinch his first MotoGP crown in 6 long years. Well, you feel he's going to have to work pretty darn hard for it. Third fastest this morning and looking like he wasn't exactly over happy with life on the GP25. But at the moment, not even inside the top 10. No problemo at the moment though, for Pedro Acosta.
Chain firmly attached.
Of course. Yeah. 3 chain failures for the factory KTM squad in Misano. The last of which sparks a lot of aggressive chain reaction from Pedro Acosta. Well, we know that he can count to 1. That's the good thing on one of his hands. Yeah, the things that they have rectified that particular issue. As Marc Marquez then comes back into the factory Ducati garage. Now this, in red this year, is uncharted territory, isn't it, for Marc? I mean, there's not been too many occasions as he sort of scowled at the timing screens where Marc has been in this position with 6 minutes remaining. It's the 2 brothers, Alex and Marc, are the only 2 that have been directly through the Q2 every time so far this season. Alex for the 43. That might be good enough. Zarco and Quartararo are 6th and 7th, doing an excellent job. The 2 Frenchmen. Bagnaia won't be able to relax for a 43.829. Doesn't seem like it was that long ago, does it? Marini was top of the pile. He's been pushed back down to 9th. Morbidelli's crash at turn 9 could be, because he's now right on that danger zone in 10th.
Not convinced that is enough for Alex Marquez at 43. The throttle is going to be in turn 2 today.
So Marc Marquez out on circuit for his final run in this practice session, and at the moment out of Q2. We pick up Bagnaia, aggressive on the front end of that factory Ducati into turn 5. That is a brilliant back Yamaha. So that's the 2nd crash of the day now for Miller. What a lap that was by Miller. 43.639 as that booked his spot in the Q2.
Well, I can't say anything with certainty at the moment. This is one of the most unpredictable sessions we've seen in 2025 in MotoGP. Marc Marquez, you can see on the track map, is coming down towards turn 11 now. They can see the red and yellow light panel flashing to indicate slippery surface, diminished adhesion due to whatever that debris is on the inside of turn 12. Marc Marquez will be pleased as he starts his final lap to learn that the yellows have been cleared as Bagnaia now takes top spot.
There you go. Well, Davide Tarlozzi told Jack this morning that the Ducati felt that Bagnaia is back. Well, he was fastest in that P1 this morning, and he's just finding a 1:43.539. Thank you very much, Bagnaia, fastest out of absolutely nowhere. Enea Bastianini has been languishing right at the back end of the timing screens, has just pushed himself up into P6. You cannot take your eyes off this section at all. Brad Binder, the Tranmere, Pedro Acosta, Fermin Almaguer, Bagnaia, Bezzecchi, all
Itu pisang goreng.
Be relying, isn't he, on yellow flags. Tranmere on the factory Honda out of nowhere. Mia, before he started this current stint, was 21st. He went from 21st to 3rd. He's now gone from 3rd to 1st. In the last 2 laps, Mia has gained 20 places.
This has got the feeling of a wet section, hasn't it? The last one over the line might well top this one. Honda literally and figuratively owned this circuit. Acosta then changes it now. Acosta retakes top spot on 43.3.
What about Mark? Down in 17th place. He needs this lap big time, doesn't he? Acosta's gone down. Acosta has crashed. Seconds after setting the best time of the day so far with 1:43.329. Over the line goes Mark. Bezzecchi fastest. Marc Marquez up into P3. That's more like it. A 1:43.360 from the 93. Bezzecchi fastest. There's still 2 minutes of this session remaining. Can we say with any accuracy that Marco Bezzecchi will finish in top? What a day one it has been here in Motegi. High drama from the first lap of day one to the last lap. Bezzecchi needs to lead this session. Still 1 minute and 45 seconds of it remaining. That's a totaled, absolutely totaled factory gate. Pedro Acosta's gone down big time here in the first corner.
It's like it's going to cartwheel, isn't it, as it hits the gravel trap. Watch that KTM go off screen and off for its own journey through the gravel trap. It's going to be skywards when we next see it. Pedro Acosta, seconds after setting a 43.3. He'll be glad he did that 43.3 because that should see him through.
Yeah, he has had a tendency, hasn't he, this year to make big mistakes at key moments. Both factory Hondas look like they're going through. As Ralph Hernandez, just moved himself up into 7th place. Also charges in wide at the first corner. Mia 4th and Marini 5th. Iagura's just jumped up to 11th. The Di Antonio now in 5th place. He splits the factory Hondas. Right, let's try and catch our breath.
Alex Marquez is the story here now, isn't he? He's now back down to 13th place. His far as Chantra's now binned it. And this is exactly the problem. If you don't get your work done early, yellow flags could come out and ruin everything.
3 riders have set the exact same lap time. Agura, Martin and Alex have all finding 1:43.784. Chantra then that becomes the latest victim of this crash-strewn Friday here.
Yeah, but of course, Alex Marquez is about to start his final flying lap. If those yellows are still out, then Alex Marquez is stranded. Here he comes. Yellows now cleared, and it's all on this final lap for Alex Marquez to avoid the first Q1 appearance of 2025.
There's a big whack on the left shoulder there, but as Chantra hit the tarmac. So this is a massive 14.8 kilometres coming up for Alex Marquez. He'll just be praying that he can get a lap in. A clean lap as well without any yellow flag drama. Oh, he's wide. He's made a right hash of turn 3. He got it all completely wrong. He was off the edge of the curb and they wanted that. Alex. Well, he's lost almost half a second. He's half a second down almost in that first sector. This is over. Yeah, he knows it. Alex Marquez rolls out of it then going into turn 5. And that golden record of being in every Q2 or directly into Q2 so far this season has gone. He'll get a second bite of the cherry tomorrow morning in Q1. Well, there'll be no Alex Marquez directly into Q2. Luca Marini and Alex Rins have taken the checker flag at the end of what was probably the craziest 60-minute practice session we've had of the season so far.
This isn't over yet. Bastianini's 10th, but it's Quartararo here we're on board with, who could be about to spoil his afternoon. Quartararo, in all of the mayhem, has been shuffled back down to 15th place on the factory Yamaha. 43.8, nowhere near good enough as he now comes onto the back straight. If he can hold this in the final sector, he could bump Bastianini out.
Iagura's 11th, that's where he not be in Q2 directly at Agura. He's 4 hundredths away from That's Giannini. Now then, can Quattararo nail this fourth sector? Through 13. Right now, through 14 we go. Moldavelli is paying dearly for his crash early on at turn 9. Quattararo, 15th to where? 15th to 8th. Brilliant lap that by Quattararo. A late stunner, and Zarco goes up into 10th. That's pushed Aldeguer out late on. I mean, at one stage in that session, we probably had 22 riders, 21 or 22 riders that were inside the top 10 at one point. Acosta starts the post-mortem after his high-speed front-end washout at turn 1. Acosta's going to end the day in P2. First time, though, in 2025, Alex Marquez will have to feature in Q1. It has not been his day at all, has it? This was the key late mistake. This is where he had to get the job done. Last flying lap incoming. And at turn 3, he was under the cosh, he was under pressure to find a lap, and he was wide, he was on the green anyway, wasn't he?
As soon as he went the wrong side of the curb and hit the green, the lap was trashed anyway. So Alex Marquez, no matter what had happened in the rest of the lap, his fate was sealed. What an extraordinary Friday at the Japanese Grand Prix, and out of it all, after 2 crashes first thing this morning, Marco Bezzecchi, in many respects the 4-man in MotoGP right now, tops Friday for Aprilia. Aprilia quickest from KTM, Bezzecchi from Acosta, Marc Marquez 3rd. Honda will be thrilled with that, 4th and 6th for Mir and Marini. Bagnaia safely through in the end at 7th with Digit 5th. Quattararo ensures that Yamaha are also represented in Q2 with 8 there. Brown Fernandez and Johan Zarco, so the big losers, the big casualties. Alex Marquez 15th, Martin only 13th. Binder, who's also towards the top today on 17th. Frankie Morbidelli, another surprise, down in 16th place. Pick the bones out on that.
Something always happens on the flyaways, doesn't it, at the end of a MotoGP season? And something has happened rather special and spectacular here on day 1 in Motegi. Marc Marquez now is the last rider standing in terms of going directly through to Q2 in every Grand Prix so far this season. He had to work really, really hard for it. 3rd overall, P3 for Mark, 3 points all he needs over Alex this weekend to be crowned world champion. Well, that's secure for jet lag, isn't it? I think it's fair to say. Marco Bezzecchi crashes twice this morning and is fastest. Other crashes, or other twice-fallers on day 1. Jorge Martin 13th, Frankie Morbidelli 16th, Jack Miller 20th. Those trail all paying dearly for 2 spills on day 1. Marco Bezzecchi, what a start. Aprilia's in form, Italian. Nails the practice start for good measure as well. 1:43.193 from Bears. Puts him nearly a 10th and a half clear of Acosta, who had late drama. Nasty scrappy practice start there for Marcus. He powered the factory Ducati away. At one stage, we were seriously contemplating a scenario where it looked like both Mark and Alex might be in Q1 tomorrow morning. Alex is, Mark isn't. What a session. What an absolutely brilliant way to kick off up for race flyway tour. Certainly as far as the factory Honda sport are concerned. Mia 4th, Marini 6th. A great start to the home Grand Prix for HRC. Let's get the thoughts of the boss Alberto Pujas with Jack.
Alberto, great start to the home Grand Prix for the factory. 3 bikes inside the top 10. Johan, and Luki must be delighted.
Well, it's really important. I mean, to put 3 bikes in the top 10 is not so easy, especially if you can do it in your own Grand Prix. I mean, for Honda it's fantastic, but it's true that it's not only because of this, it's because it was a long time we didn't have so many riders in good position with good lap times, so this is a really important thing, that we are progressing as we expected, and yeah, I mean, it's a day to be happy.
Great job.
Tomorrow will be another day, but today we have to be happy.
Absolutely. Great job. Well done.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, here. Great job by HRC. Mia 4th, Marini 6th, Zarco 10th. Excellent Friday. And at one stage, Sonkia Chantra was also putting up a great fight for Q2 as well. Chantra finished 18th. Well, we heard on the pit lane mic, didn't we there? Bravo was one of the messages to Marco Bezzecchi. And I think that's the perfect word to describe Some turnaround for Bez. A crash this morning at turn 11, followed by a crash then at turn 5, on the floor twice in 7.5 laps this morning. This was the start of his very dramatic and eventful opening to this Moto Grand Prix of Japan. Now that is a real high-speed front-end loss down the hill into the 90-degree corner, into turn 11. A couple of big barrel rolls through the gravel trap as well for Bez. Shortly thereafter, not long later at all, he was then on the floor at turn 5, just picking up the throttle on that RSGP. And he was then for the second time this morning, and he only did 7 time laps. And then what has he done? He's picked himself up and he's found himself in P1 this afternoon. Yeah, a cheeky wink to our camera. Live pictures, of course, in the left-hand corner of your screens. That is Bez taking on some very hard-earned fluids. Wow. Wow. Are you not entertained? That was something special.
And this Japanese Grand Prix feels wide open, doesn't it, going into tomorrow, even before you consider what impact the weather might have on the weekend. Feels like we don't need any wet weather here to throw an incredibly exciting and unpredictable Japanese Grand Prix at us. The top 2 riders, both with their scrapes and their bruises today, but Marco Bezzecchi and Pedro Acosta ensuring that Ducati have got plenty of competition here at Motegi this weekend.
Tell you why, he was still carrying a fair old rate of knots there, wasn't he, Pedro Acosta, as he threw the factory KTM into the scenery. Bag's done a great job there for the Spanish rider. Of course, it was 2 crashes at the worst possible times in the Japanese Grand Prix here last year, when having set pole position, he was leading the sprint and crashed out at turn 7. He was second, chasing Pekka Bagnaia early on in the Grand Prix when he crashed out at the final corner. A dramatic day for the Shark. A dramatic day pretty much for every single rider out on circuit. I think they've all got a story to tell. You could pretty much write a book on what just happened in that practice session. Marquez fans, Fabio Quartararo fans are enjoying their day in the Motegi sunshine. It's going to cool down considerably for the remainder of the weekend. Still pleasant temperatures well into the 20s. A possible threat of rain around tomorrow. Let's hope that sort of stays away. That's, well, I mean, unpredictable is going to be the word to describe Friday's action here in MotoGP. Bezzecchi leading the way then with a 1:43.193. Acosta second fastest despite his late crash and with a late rally. A much needed late rally. Was it ever really in any doubt? Marc Marquez was just teasing us there, keeping himself outside the top 10. But when he went on to the soft rubber, you always did feel that there was going to be plenty in the pocket, and indeed there was. Well, that was some way to kick off what is potentially a title-deciding Grand Prix of Japan here. What a day for Marco Bezzecchi. 2 falls and P1.
Extraordinary afternoon. Marco Bezzecchi from Pedro Acosta. Marc Marquez third. Doesn't come close to telling the story of his afternoon. Joan Mir 4th, top Honda. Fabio Di Gianantonio been ahead of Luca Marini. The Hondas continue their progress. Bagnaia 7th, although he did look much better today. Quartararo rescued 8th at the end, ahead of Ralph Fernandez and Johan Zarco, who for 0.008 of a second cost Fermin Aldeguer Q2. Jorge Martin 13th after 2 crashes for him this afternoon, and Alex Marquez 15th goes into Q1 for the first time this season.
0.9 of a second covering your top 20 from Marco Bezzecchi down to Jack Miller in P20. Well, no pressure, but Sprint Saturday's got a lot to live up to, hasn't he, after an unbelievable Friday here. Marco Bezzecchi then started with a brand new medium front tyre and a worn medium rear tyre. A few consistent to a high 144, did better in that first run, and he was dynamite on that final soft rear tyre, 1:43. Bears fastest here in Japan.
Pedro Acosta second. What you don't see on that front line of Pedro Acosta was the last lap, which of course ended in the gravel at turn 1. Fortunately though, moments before that 1:43.329 secured him second place.
He was one of the last riders in that session to switch over to soft rubber. Mark spent a lot of it looking at the medium front, medium rear tyre, getting himself set for the attack on Sunday's Grand Prix. When he did go for fresh soft rubber though, he was rapid as always. 1:43.360 at the start of his 5th run, making sure that Mark through to Q2 once again.
He's the only rider who's been able to say that at every Grand Prix automatically this season. Juan Mir 4th, and of course a circuit owned by Honda. Mir doing a lot of work on that soft rear tyre, putting 14 laps on that, which is in excess of sprint distance tomorrow. When he switched to a brand new soft, he found a 1:43.3, just a 10th.5 off the pace of Bezzecchi.
Well, we'll look at the sector time short, then we're all up for a lie down, I think, to try and regroup after that practice session here in Japan. Bears flying in the first split, 9,000 clear. Mark with Acosta 3rd.
Gian Antonio takes sector 2 ahead of Bezzecchi and Marini.
Juan Mir flying on the factory Honda in sector 3 ahead of Bears and Mark.
And Marc Marquez does top the 4th sector ahead of Marini. Alex Rins, who made the top 3 in that sector. Very difficult though to draw any kind of firm conclusions from that.
Well, who's going to claim our 17th pole position of 2025 here in Motegi tomorrow? Well, we have not got a clue. Anybody's guess who's going to come out on top in qualifying and the sprint here tomorrow. What we do know for certain is Marco Bezzecchi has had a pretty eventful start to this Japanese Grand Prix. 2 crashes this morning. He bounces back in some style to lead the way on a fantastic Friday here in Japan. In Motegi. Marquez now is the last rider standing in terms of going directly through to Q2 in every Grand Prix so far this season. He had to work really, really hard for his 3rd overall. P3 for Mark, 3 points all he needs over Alex this weekend to be crowned world champion. Wow. Well, that's secure for jet lag, isn't it? I think it's fair to say. Marco Bezzecchi crashes twice this morning and is fastest. Other crashes, or other twice fallers on day 1. Jorge Martin 13th, Frankie Morbidelli 16th, Jack Miller 20th. Those trio all paying dearly for 2 spills on day 1. Marco Bezzecchi, what a star. 3 years in form Italian. The practice start for good measure as well. 1:43.193 from Bears. Puts him nearly a 10th.5 clear of Acosta, who had late drama. But messy, scrappy practice start there for Marcus. He powered the factory Ducati away. At one stage, we were seriously contemplating a scenario where it looked like both Mark and Alex might be in Q1 tomorrow morning. Alex is, Mark isn't. What a session. What an absolutely brilliant way to kick off our four-race flyweight tour. Certainly as far as the factory Honda Sport are concerned, Mia 4th, Marini 6th. A great start to the home Grand Prix for HRC. Let's get the thoughts of the boss Alberto Pujas with Jack.
Alberto, great start to the home Grand Prix for the factory. 3 bikes inside the top 10. Joan, and Luki must be delighted.
Well, it's really important. I mean, with 3 bikes in the top 10s, it's not so easy, especially if you can do it in your own Grand Prix. I mean, for Honda, it's fantastic, but it's true that it's not only because of this, it's because it was a long time we didn't have so many riders in good position with good lap times. So this is a really important thing, that we are progressing as we expected. And yeah, I mean, it's a day to be happy.
Great job.
Tomorrow will be another day, but today we have to be happy.
Absolutely. Great job. Well done.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, here, great job by HRC. Mia 4th, Marini 6th, Zarco 10th. Excellent Friday. And at one stage, Sonkiat Chantra was also putting up a great fight for Q2 as well. Chantra finished at 18th. Well, we heard on the pit lane mic, didn't we there? Bravo was one of the messages to Marco Bezzecchi. I think that's the perfect word to describe. Some turnaround for Bez. Crash this morning at turn 11, followed by a crash then at turn 5, on the floor twice in 7.5 laps this morning. This was the start of his very dramatic and eventful opening to this Moto Grand Prix of Japan. Now that is a real high-speed front-end loss down the hill into the 90-degree corner, into turn 11. The big barrel rolls through the gravel trap as well for Bez. Shortly thereafter, not long later at all, he was then on the floor at turn 5, just picking up the throttle on that RSGP. That he was then for the second time this morning, and he only did 7 time laps. And then what has he done? He's picked himself up and he's found himself in P1 this afternoon. Yeah, a cheeky wink to our camera. Live pictures, of course, in the left-hand corner of your screens. That is Bez taking on some very hard-earned fluids. Wow. Are you not entertained? That was something special.
And this Japanese Grand Prix feels wide open, doesn't it, going into tomorrow? Even before you consider what impact the weather might have on the weekend. Feels like we don't need any wet weather here to throw an incredibly exciting and unpredictable Japanese Grand Prix at us. The top 2 riders, both with their scrapes and their bruises today. But Marco Bezzecchi and Pedro Acosta ensuring that Ducati have got plenty of competition here at Motegi this weekend.
Anyway, he was still carrying a fair old rate of knots there, wasn't he, Pedro Acosta, as he threw the factory KTM into the scenery. Banks done a great job there for the Spanish rider. Of course, it was 2 crashes at the worst possible times in the Japanese Grand Prix here last year, when having set pole position, he was leading the sprint and crashed out at turn 7. He was second, chasing Pekka Bagnaia early on in the Grand Prix when he crashed out at the final corner. A dramatic day for the Shark. A dramatic day pretty much for every single rider out on circuit. I think they've all got a story to tell. Could pretty much write a book on what just happened in that practice session. Marquez fans, Fabio Quartararo fans are enjoying their day in the Motegi sunshine. Whether it's going to cool down considerably the remainder of the weekend. Still pleasant temperatures well into the 20s. A possible threat of rain around tomorrow. Let's hope that stays away. Yes. Well, I think unpredictable is going to be the word to describe Friday's action here in MotoGP. Bezzecchi leading the way then with a 1:43.193. Acosta second fastest despite his late crash. And with a late rally, a much needed late rally. Was it ever really in any doubt? Marc Marquez He was just teasing and keeping himself outside the top 10. But when he went on to the soft rubber, you always did feel that there was going to be plenty in the pocket, and indeed there was. Well, that was some way to kick off what is potentially a title-deciding Grand Prix of Japan. Here, what a day for Marco Bezzecchi. 2 falls and P1.
Extraordinary afternoon. Marco Bezzecchi from Pedro Acosta. Marc Marquez third. Doesn't come close to telling the story of his afternoon. Joan Mir fourth, top Honda. Fabio Di Giannantonio fifth, ahead of Luca Marini. The Hondas continue their progress. Bagnaia 7th, although he did look much better today. Quartararo rescued 8th at the end, ahead of Ralph Fernandez and Johan Zarco, who for 0.008 of a second cost Fermin Aldeguer Q2. Jorge Martin 13th after 2 crashes for him this afternoon, and Alex Marquez 15th goes into Q1 for the first time this season.
0.9 of a second covering your top 20. But Marco Bezzecchi down to Jack Miller in P20. Well, no pressure, but Sprint Saturday's got a lot to live up to, hasn't he, after an unbelievable Friday here. Marco Bezzecchi there, starting with a brand new medium front tyre on a worn medium rear tyre. Consistent to the high 144s did Bez in that first run, and he was dynamite on that final soft rear tyre. 1:43, 1:193. Bez fastest here in Japan.
And Pedro Acosta second. What you don't see on that run plan of Pedro Acosta was the last lap, which of course ended in the gravel at turn 1. Fortunately though, moments before that 1:43.329 secured him second place.
He was one of the last riders in that session to switch over to soft rubber. He spent a lot of it looking at the medium front, medium rear tyre, getting himself set for the attack on Sunday's Grand Prix. When he did go for fresh soft rubber though, he was rapid as always. 1:43.360 at the start of his 5th run, making sure that Marc through to Q2 once again.
He's the only rider who's been able to say that at every Grand Prix automatically this season. Joan Mir 4th, and of course a circuit owned by Honda. Mir doing a lot of work on that soft rear tyre, putting 14 laps on that, which is in excess of sprint distance tomorrow. When he switched to a brand new soft, he found a 1:43.3, just 1/10.5 off the pace of Bezzecchi.
Well, we'll look at the sector time short, then we're all off for a lie down, I think, to try and regroup after that practice session here in Japan. Bez flying in the first split, 9,000 clear. Marc with Acosta third.
Di Giannantonio takes sector 2 ahead of Bezzecchi and Marini.
Look at Joan Mir flying on the factory Honda in sector 3 ahead of Bez and Marc.
And Marc Marquez does top the 4th sector ahead of Marini. And Alex Rins, who made the top 3 in that sector. Pretty difficult though to draw any kind of firm conclusions from that.
Well, who's going to claim our 17th pole position of 2025 here in Motegi tomorrow? Well, we have not got a clue. Anybody's guess who's going to come out on top in qualifying and the sprint here tomorrow. What we do know for certain is Marco Bezzecchi has had a pretty eventful start to this Japanese Grand Prix. 2 crashes this morning. He bounces back in some style to lead the way on a fantastic Friday here in Japan.